Hey, students march, statues fall, tanks return. My name's Matt Haskell, and I'm a high school history teacher, and I'm taking you line by line through Billy Joel's We Didn't Start the Fire. And next up, well, we're going to Budapest. So when Billy Joel sings Budapest, he is pointing to the Hungarian Revolution in 1956, when we have a student-led uprising that challenged Soviet control, but it briefly won freedom before it was crushed. And it begins on October 23rd of 1956, when university students in Budapest publish a list of demands, including free elections, withdrawal of Soviet troops, an end to the secret police. And the march swells around the parliament. And the crowds eventually knock over a giant statue of Stalin. At the state radio building, the secret police, the AVH, they fire on demonstrators, and the city just kind of, it ignites, it takes off. And so the government brings back reformer Imre Nagy as prime minister. And over the next few days, you have street fighters, many of them were young workers and students, that improvise Molotov cocktails. They capture weapons. They knock out the tanks in the narrow streets. And from October 28th to the 30th, you have this fragile calm that begins to take hold. And Nog announces a ceasefire. He legalizes banned parties. And on November 1st, declares neutrality and also Hungary's intention to leave the Warsaw Pact. Now, Moscow decides this experiment cannot stand. And before dawn on November 4th, thousands of Soviet troops and tanks re-enter Budapest. This is known as Operation Whirlwind. You have artillery pounding, key intersections in the city, and then radio begins to send out signals for appeals for help that never comes. The United States voices its support, but it doesn't intervene. And then the problem is the attention is really split by the Suez crisis that's unfolding the very same week. And by November 10th, organized resistance is effectively over. And the cost is heavy. Roughly 2,500 Hungarians are killed, thousands or more are wounded. About 200,000 refugees flee west across the Austrian border. Imre Nagy is arrested. He's later tried in secret and executed in 1958. The new leader, János Kodár, tightens control before gradually easing into goulash communism. It trades political obedience for a modest rise in living standards. Why does this matter to the song's 1950s, frame? Well, because Budapest 1956 punctures the myth of a monolithic communist bloc. It shows the limits of Khrushchev's de-Stalinization. It reveals that radio-free Europe rhetoric would not be matched by Western troops. And it seeds a memory that will eventually blossom in 1989 when Hungarians, they rebury Nagy with honors, and they open the border to the west. The image that remains is the Hungarian tricolor with a hole cut out, because citizens literally removed the communist emblem from their flag. When we tie it back to the lyric, in one word, Billy Joel tags an entire revolution. He the hope is rising in a capital. You have the sound of the tank treads on the city streets. And there's a lesson that every Cold War generation remembered, that the will to be free can surge fast, and the costs of confronting an empire can be immediate. And the reason why it matters is Budapest explains the human stakes of the Cold War and how ordinary citizens challenge tanks and how superpowers calculate risk and how a brief uprising can shape national identity for decades. If you enjoyed this particular take on the lyric here, well, leave me a like, a comment, a share. A follow would be great. And we'll keep on moving through the song, because next up after Budapest is Alabama. Thanks for watching.